In this video, we'd like to show you the different components of the technology in Canvas that can be used for assessment. In Canvas, there are actually only two different broad areas of assessment. The first we want to talk about is these things called question banks or quizzes. Now, quizzes might refer to that small little quiz that you would have at the end of a day or at the end of the week. But in Canvas, they use the term quiz also for those large comprehensive exams, such as the midterm or the semester. These are the type of assessments that have selected choice type of response questions. Those exams with multiple choice and matching, and that have one specific correct answer that can be assessed and evaluated right directly within the technology. The other aspects of assessment are what they're called rubrics in Canvas, and these are those objective assessments in which you determine the criteria which you are looking for and the particular levels of achievement that are going to be scored with the students. And this is often used with essays, open response, presentations, projects, papers, field experiences, etc. The type of selected choice questions which are available in Canvas you can see here on the screen, and in general those are used for attainment of knowledge. Have they attained the knowledge you expect them to be able to respond with or not? So you will, of course, many of us are very familiar with this type of assessment. In those multiple choice or selected choice type of assessments, generally there's a whole list of questions that come within an assessment or a test that you would have. And when we score them, we take the score on all of those and average them together to get the score for that particular assessment. But in outcomes assessment, we want to know the specific questions that fit with a particular outcome. So what we would do is identify which questions align with one particular outcome, which questions align with another outcome, and let's say a third outcome, and then be able to disaggregate the specific achievement on specific questions per outcome. This gives us the opportunity to identify the specific areas of achievement and also of misconceptions that the students may have as pertaining to outcomes, in contrast to averaging together all of the scores to identify one particular score. So let's go to Canvas and find out how we can align these outcomes with selected choice type of assessments.
So I'm in a Canvas course now at the course level, and the first step that a faculty member would do to set this up is to first find the program level outcomes that those selected response tests or exams or quizzes would be assessing. So I can create outcomes in a course, but if I do that and use those outcomes, the data will only be usable in that course. So I need to align it or link it to the program level in order for the data to automatically be reported up to that level. So to do that, I'll click Find, and I'm in the Outcomes tool here, which is available in every single course. So I'll Find, and then I'll navigate, and normally your program name would be listed here, and then your program outcomes would be right next to it. This course isn't part of a program, so what it has is these general institutional learning outcomes here. So I'll just select one of those, and I'll select the critical thinking outcome, and you can see the description and the achievement levels there. And if I scroll down and click Import and click OK, that outcome is now in my course, linked to the other level, usually the program level, and now this is available to be aligned with my quiz through a question bank. So now I'll go over to my quizzes tool, and I've already created some quizzes. So what I want to do is I want to actually take those questions that I've created in those quizzes and actually categorize them or file them into question banks that then get aligned with outcomes. So to do that, to access the question banks, actually click the three dots icon up here next to the quiz, Add Quiz button, and then you can go to Manage Question Banks. And now that takes us over to the question banks list. And you can create question banks here. I already have a critical thinking question bank created. So what I need to do is actually file the questions that are aligned with critical thinking into that bank. So whenever you create a quiz, the questions will automatically be filed in unfiled questions, this folder here, this bank. And so I have a bunch of questions here. And what I need to do is actually move those using this Move Multiple Questions button into the critical thinking bank. So I'll click on that, and then I'll select my questions that I want to move. And then I will click the critical thinking bank, and I'll click Move Questions. So now those questions, they're still in my quiz that I created before, but now they've been moved, if I navigate back to my critical thinking bank, into critical thinking. So now they're there, and now the final thing I need to do is click Align Outcome, and then select the critical thinking outcome that I brought in from the higher level in the hierarchy. And there is an option here to set a mastery score. That's really not important for our purposes. When we report, we'll have you choose what levels you want to report. So don't even worry about that right there. And then click Import. And now you can see that critical thinking is aligned with these questions. So whenever a student takes a quiz with these questions in it, critical thinking score will be reported to the program level.
Now, some of your programs may have multiple choice tests that are not taken within Canvas, but are taken in other means. So would you explain how we can align those questions with particular outcomes?
Yeah, so those questions generally are in terms of Scantron assignments. And there is a Scantron tool within Canvas where you can, just like we did here, type your questions in into a quiz and then file them in different question banks. And then when you create a Scantron, it'll give you a PDF printout, and you'll get the scores in a Scantron file as you normally would. When you re-upload those, as long as the questions that they're assessing are aligned in a question bank, just like these are, those scores will automatically be reported as well. So Scantron quizzes work just the same as regular quizzes as long as the questions are filed within a bank.
So the amount of time that it will save you as a faculty member to be able to identify students' achievement on specific questions, so then you can learn more about achievement per outcome, is tremendous because it does it automatically. The time is actually putting the questions in, but once it's there, it all transfers from semester to semester, and you would never have to really do that again. You can continue adding questions and putting them in question banks, and eventually you'll have a whole bank of written communication questions, critical thinking questions, etc., that if you wanted to, you could even create your own critical thinking examination from the multiple questions that you have collected over a period of time that is directly associated with your course content. And we'd also like to now show you the other side, the aspect of rubrics. Rubrics, of course, being not necessarily an attainment of knowledge, but what students do with that knowledge, the application of knowledge. Rubrics can be created in a very simple fashion, which is identifying the criteria and how many points are along with it. Also can be designed in such a way that you have very detailed descriptors of what achievement means in each particular category. The nice thing about having rubric scoring devices within Canvas is that being electronically, whether it's on your phone or your iPad or your computer, that you can sort of click in each of the squares, type whatever comments you might want to have, push save, and once it's submitted, the scores will automatically go to your grade book, and the specific criteria that were brought from and aligned with a particular program outcome automatically goes back to the program. Within a particular rubric, you'll see this first category over here. Those are the criteria that you are deciding that you want the students to demonstrate. This level over here are the particular levels of achievement that you design according to the rigor expectation of students achievement that you have. Whether you have created a rubric or not, I know all of us have an identification what it means to be developing or what it actually means to meet our expectations. But many programs have found in the process of developing these rubrics that they clarify exactly what those expectations are and make scoring much easier for the faculty when they're scoring. It also helps the students to know what to strive for, what you're looking for, because you have clearly defined what those expectations are for achievement. And then once again, particular outcomes or particular criteria would identify achievement in particular outcomes. So the particular criteria line, that achievement score, will be collected by the program and then disaggregated. So let's show you how this is done within the Canvas technology.
I'm back in Canvas in my course here, and rubrics generally are used to assess assignments. And I will note that it can be used to assess really any type of assignment. So it could be a paper like I have here. It could be a discussion board. It could be a non-submission assignment. So if you're watching a student give an oral presentation, or you're out in the field, or you're assessing a student's work at an exhibition, you can do that. They can also be used on quizzes. So if you have an essay question on a quiz and want to assess that using criteria on a rubric, you can align and use a rubric on a quiz. For this example, just use a paper. So I'll go into my final paper assignment, and at the bottom of this assignment type, there's a plus rubric button, and that's what I'll click, and I can rename my rubric, final paper rubric. And down below that, I can add as many criteria as I want for my course grading. So I can add new criteria. This will be criteria 2, or content, or whatever it is. And I can describe it, can change the point values and edit those to kind of weight each of these depending on what I'm expecting in the course. But then to use a rubric to assess outcomes, program level outcomes specifically, I'll actually have to find the outcome that I want to assess. So I'll click on Find Outcome, and then I'll go and select that critical thinking outcome I brought in earlier. And here's a key checkbox. So when you go through this to add an outcome to a rubric, the box is right here that says whether you want to use this criterion for scoring. And what this box controls is whether or not these point values that are associated with the outcome contribute to the score for the assignment. So if your scoring ranges and scales match up, you can use the outcome scoring to contribute to the assignment. If not, you can uncheck this box, and the students will still see that they exceeded or met expectations or whatnot, but the point values won't automatically be translated to the assignment score. So I'll uncheck it for now, and we'll see what that looks like. So if I import that, then at the bottom, you'll see each of those achievement levels appears there, and I cannot edit this, so these are set at the program level, and then I'll have to use the scale in my course. There are some other options down below where you can remove points entirely from the rubric if you just want to give feedback, and whether or not you want to use the rubric scoring points for assignment grading, etc. I'll click Create Rubric, and now I have the rubric there. So once students start submitting their assignments, I'll assess them using the speed grader. So I'll click the speed grader for this assignment, and I'll navigate over to a student who submitted a paper. And on the left, I have all my annotation tools, so I can read through it and annotate it. I can assign the actual points, the grade there for the score, and I can give comments down at the bottom. But what we're concerned with is this View Rubric button. And if I click on that, then the rubric will appear. And then it's just as simple as click, 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 and save. And just that fast, this score of meets program expectations proficient is now reported to the program level, or whatever level this outcome came from for this student. So now assessment of outcomes becomes part of the grading process and is assessed along with the course expectations for this assignment for each student.
Now, this is a very general overview of rubrics and how they can be used within Canvas. There are many different ways to be able to make this rubric mechanism fit within your expectations, which we're not going to be able to go through in this particular video. but I do encourage you to contact the Office of Assessment and let us help you design these rubrics so you can import the particular outcomes that you want to assess and make decisions on how they will fit into your scoring process or not, and the different options that you have in to be able to create these and use them. If you'd like to go back to the PowerPoint, I want to tell you just a little bit about how people are using the outcomes across campus, or these rubrics. They're used quite often in lab situations in which the students are actively doing things, and the faculty will be there with their pre-designed rubric, watching each of the students do their experiments and scoring them throughout their labs. They're also used extensively in teacher evaluation, in which the students are out in the field as well as within their practice classrooms and doing their teaching experiences, and they can be used both by the faculty supervisors and also the external field experience supervisors as well. It's used often in a lot of the scientific areas, and when they're doing field work, where they can bring out their iPad or their phone and be able to assess the student within their work that they are doing for the particular assignments. And it's also used extensively across campus for speeches and those type of presentations to be able to assess the students in those criteria that identifies achievement. So this tells you a bit about the two ways that you can assess within Canvas. In the next video, we're going to show you a bit about how we use this data in being able to report that automatically, pull the data out of Canvas and have this automatic reporting in visualizations.